You're listening to Media Savvy Moms with Melody and Marilyn. Open, honest conversations about parenting and pornography. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Media Savvy Moms. We know you're so happy to hear from us because you're lonely and socially isolated, but we're here for you. We're going to talk about COVID-19 and quarantine and how to keep our families from going insane.
Crazy.
Yep, a little bit. So we do have the Kids at Home Survival Guide. We're getting it all ready for you. We've seen all sorts of interesting ideas about how to keep our families organized and on a nice little schedule. Have you tried this, Marilyn, putting your family on a schedule?
Yes and no. So we have a plan, but next week is when our schooling starts. We've been on school break for 2+ weeks, I guess 3 weeks now. So our plan is really laid back. So yeah, we've had no problem sticking to our plan. It's next week that I'm worried about. Like, we've been doing home education, but this is somebody else's idea of what education, namely my school board's idea of what home education should look like. So all my ideas of, well, let's go for a walk and get our physical activity. Let's bake cookies and let's have our home economics class, or let's learn how to change a light bulb because
Right.
nobody seems to know how to do that around here. That's what my home education has looked like for the last 3 weeks. Does that
Right.
help you?
Yeah. Well, see, I was thinking like your plan may not work for me, and my plan's not going to work for you. And so we can't put out a plan that works for us that's going to work for everybody else. So what we put out is a tool to help you
Have we
make a plan.
confused everyone yet?
Yeah, just go look at the plan, see if it's useful for you guys.
We think it's awesome.
So how are things going over in your house, in the Evans household?
It's ebb and flow.
Mm,
The first week was pretty okay here. Then week 2 hit, and we're kind of tired of the same old, same old. And
yeah.
then maybe week 3 get a little edgier. So we're trying to adapt, and it's going okay. How about you?
It feels like it's coming in layers, like in waves. Like it was stressful at first, and then we're like, okay, we can deal, right? Because first we were just, it was like a suggestion to stay away from people and the 6 feet apart, social distancing, right? And now it's a class 1 misdemeanor if we leave our houses except to go for, medical help and food once a week. So it's like, whoa,
It really feels like we're living in a sci-fi type movie.
a little bit. We were talking to our son who lives in Florida, and they have checkpoints. It's getting real. In California, they have a hotline where you can report your neighbors for violations. It's just like, feels a little squashed,
I like
kind
how
of.
you said at first it just felt like a suggestion, and then it piled on layer after layer. And this is our new reality, and
Mm,
we're going to have to adjust to this for the next unforeseeable future. I mean, we're hoping by summer that things are back to normal. But so how do we get into that routine? And I listened to a podcast the other day by Next Talk, and their guest talked about being thrown into a cold pool, and at first it's just so shocking, and you just want to get out as fast as you can, but as you stay in and you realize this is where you have to be, you start to adapt and make adjustments, and I'm seeing that. How about you?
it's a pressure cooker at my house. Let's be real.
Uh-huh.
We were having like little explosions all the time. We got to let the steam out.
Well, you've got a different situation. You've got a little guy, and little guys
Oh,
tend to have
I
more
know.
explosive reactions. That's just life,
And
right?
it's true. And that's the thing too. And we were talking about at the beginning how we wanted to develop a do-it-yourself plan because every family is different. And whoa, every family is different, right? We've got some families that have working parents at home, one working at home, both working at home, single parents. You have how many people do you have in your house right now all the time?
Five at home.
5.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So every day, most of the day, I have 2 people. Me and my elementary school age son.
Yeah.
That's a different dynamic altogether. So my kid has not seen another child in about a month. And we were already going through a transition because his brother just moved away to live with his dad. So he's not used to being an only child.
Hmm.
And now we're thrown into, oh, and PS, now you have no friends to interact with too, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So let's talk about how we're going to get into new routines. And by the way, we have a great family planner interactive sheet for that.
the kids at home survival guide, in case any of you wanted to know.
And, this is big for me because it's starting up. Probably most of our listeners are already well into school at home. And so you're going to be able to shoot me back a message and tell me how expert you are at it. But we're going to talk about school at home and how that's different than homeschooling. Um, More time on screens means we need to up our screen safety plan and how we can do that. So those are the
Yeah,
3 points that we're going to hit in this episode today.
absolutely. Yeah, it's all going to look a little different. So let's talk about those new routines. How do we get into that pool and stay in?
We read somewhere the way to cope with this is to take your list, look at all the things you have to do, cut it in half, and then cut it in half again. Did we do that, Melody?
No, we didn't. I think a lot of parents too, and we were reading articles about how a lot of parents were trying to be mom, super mom during the day and then work at night. Hello, that was me. And that's just not sustainable. I'm like, my bleary eyes, bloodshot eyes show that it's just not sustainable. We're trying to then, I mean, I'm used to having a 35-hour work week while my son is at school. I always said I was an incognito working mom
Hmm.
because my kids didn't know that I was a working mom because I always worked while they were away at school. And then I was a stay at home mom while they were home. But now, hello, they're always home. So I have a poor little boy who's like, "Mommy, don't you love me anymore?" And I'm trying to find that balance between working and being a mom, and it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard.
And meanwhile, life keeps going on. Like we've have serious illness in our extended family that has unrelated to COVID-19, but we're still processing that information. There's still babies being born in families, right?
Mhm.
There's still saying goodbye to friends that maybe were here for college and they have to go home. And that's hard on our older kids. Life just continues and you still have to process that. So we're going to talk today about how to get into that new routine.
So we've talked a little bit about in the past having a family meeting, and when we did our Facebook Live, which I think we should link to in our podcast notes, because we had that first Facebook Live when we were thrown into the pool at the beginning. We talked about having a family power meeting, and now we've learned we need to have a lot of family power meetings. Right? We do have in the Kids at Home Survival Guide a form to sit down and ask some questions and get people talking about this family plan. And we talk about what are some fun things we love to do together or on our own or independently to keep ourselves busy. It's a great way to get this plan started, to get the family meeting started because it makes people happy.
I was just thinking, although many family meetings do start because there is a situation that needs to be resolved,
Right.
the best family meetings are lighthearted,
Hmm.
keep a good sense of humor. Maybe you have to get over you break the ice somehow, everybody's tensions are high, and then if you can end up laughing,
All the better.
all the better.
And we have a lot of ideas of what to say in that family council about specifically some things to talk about when we're planning and having that family meeting around this quarantine issue. We want to talk about some specific things like What are our schedules going to look like? How do we work together? What are we going to do when we have independent time? How are we going to be more aware of screens and what we're going to do during that time?
Yeah, those are just some great ideas of what could be talked about. It's really what you need to address in your family. So if it happens to be how to deal with home education, which we're going to talk about after the break, or what is mom's work schedule, what is dad's work schedule? How do we get the kids to be happy and productive at the same time?
And we've learned as we've gone along, like we said, this is not going to be one meeting, bam, we're done. We've got this awesome schedule and we're going to keep it,
Oh
right?
yeah, because we had it all figured out on week one, didn't we, Melody?
Yeah, and where's that schedule? In the trash
In the trash
because
can.
right, because we thought we had this idyllic, schedule and it looked so pretty and everything was all organized and it didn't work, right? So we've got to reevaluate and do it again and do it again and do it. And then we look the next week, what worked, what didn't, and we adjust. And that's okay. And also, when we're making these schedules, I like to say it's all right to color outside the lines.
Hmm.
It's okay. We don't have to go hour by hour. We can make an amorphous, on my schedule, I have like a squiggly dotted line on the, wake up breakfast area because guess what? I'm not setting an alarm in the morning. Sorry. So I'll wake up between sometime these hours and then we lunch kind of sort of around this time, So because I have a child who likes to go look at the board and see what comes next. So
Hmm.
he likes to have a defined order of things, but we can color outside the lines. They don't have to be exactly on a spot.
I approach my day with a list. I put 3 to 6 things. This is for work that I want to try to get done.
Mhm.
And sometimes I usually have in my mind, okay, I'm going to spend an hour on this task and I'm going to have it done by such and such a time. I can't think of one day in my life, honestly, Melody, where I have ever stayed on that schedule. That is a very rare experience for me. So I totally get this coloring outside the lines. Like, this is what I propose my day to be,
Yeah.
my list, and it helps me stay focused and it helps me see, oh, I got 3 things done of my 6 things. Woohoo, great day. Or I have to shove those other things onto the next day. But it's keeping me on track. I have an idea. It doesn't mean I'm going to stick to it. And it's really cute. I was talking with one of my friends, and we have 2 kids who just love to be organized. And so I have a boy who has a schedule for what his day looks like. And at 11 o'clock, that means he's taking the dog for a walk. And gosh darn it, if his younger brother isn't going to go with him, whether he's kicking or screaming or not. So that's the day. My friend's daughter, she has her schedule all color coded. These are not schedules that mom and dad created, by the way. These are schedules that their kids created. But the one daughter in their family has their schedule listed. I don't know if it's in chunks or hour by hour, but it's all color coded, and she keeps her siblings on track.
Wow.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, and so, we taught everybody has their own style, right? That's why it's important to have something that works for you.
And it's really great if you have a kid in your house that keeps
Everybody
the engine
knows.
running. But my
Love it.
son was like, "Oh, color coding? I am totally not into that."
Aw. I did have a really awesome tool that I love that I learned from Power of Moms,
Hmm.
um, to have your to-do list, but then to make another column next to it that is your I did list.
Oh, I like that.
Because sometimes we get to the end of the day and we have only checked off 2 things on the to-do list and we go, "Ugh, I had such an unproductive day." But guess what? If you, as you go through your day, write down things that you did, you will find out that you did so much more than you thought you did, especially as a mom. And I've started doing that, and it helps me cope emotionally so much better with my day. Because if I write down to do, work, blah, 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 go to the store to fix this, mail that, and then I don't get those things done. But then I write down things like make cookies with my kid, go on a bike ride, play Monopoly. Like those are legit things that
Talk
I
to your
got done.
sister who needed a friend.
Right.
Hmm.
Then, yeah, it's really been so helpful for me, and I love that tool. So, all right. So, we have talked a lot about some just being real about life. And as you mentioned, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about this new schooling at home, which is not the same as homeschooling, and screen safety. If you're like us, you probably spend a lot of time worrying about your kids, and especially wondering if they're safe on the digital devices and apps they're using. We have a tool that can help you. It's called the Bark app. That's Bark, B-A-R-K. Bark's logo is a little barking dog, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like a little dog that goes sniffing through your kids' content and looking for danger. It will monitor 24/7 all your kids' content and alert you if there's something dangerous that falls into the categories like drugs and alcohol, violence, sexual content, self-harm, profanity, weapons, or changes to their accounts. If you get an alert, then it will send you a little ping and also suggestions on how to talk to your child about the problem. We have a special 30-day trial for our listeners. You can try out the app and test drive it for 30 days. Just go in, download the app, and at checkout, use the code MEDIASAVVY. And we're back. We're talking about COVID-19 and quarantine and trying not to go crazy. And we're going to tackle one of the biggest topics that's affecting our family right now, and that's trying to school at home.
This is huge. This
Yeah.
is like all across North America.
Mm-hmm.
Every school district is scrambling to figure out how to get their kids to keep their year, right?
Yes. Do you want to hear a story about this hitting the fan at our house?
Absolutely.
Oh, for heaven's sake. So I mentioned that we've had some layers of how this has gone down around here.
Uh-huh.
And at first, it was only a 2-week thing. Okay.
You can deal with 2 weeks, right?
Right. 2 weeks is like winter break,
Vacation.
right? So, so then we get the notification. Oh gosh, it was on a day where my sweet boy had completely lost it. And I just want to say, I asked him if I could share this story, and he said yes.
Oh,
So he had just had like his first major meltdown of, I hate the world. I hate COVID-19. It's ruining my life. This is never going to end. I mean, major, like
uh-huh.
thrashing, ranting. And we're doing our best. And so he was upstairs melting down in his room. Meanwhile, I get this call from the superintendent, pre-recorded, because the governor had just gotten on and announced that the schools were closed now until April 15th. And I'm thinking, how am I going to tell him this? I think he had cooled down. He was downstairs. He was doing something else. And I said, "Can you come upstairs? We need to talk as a family." And he goes, "Am I in trouble?
Uh-huh.
Did I do something wrong? Did somebody die?" It's like, man, I must have some sort of like expression on my face, but I burst out laughing. I just thought, and so when I gave him the news, he was like, "Oh, okay. I just was really worried, Mom." And so, it's just been like that. Like the stress is real. It's just,
You probably looked like somebody had died. You
I
probably
probably
did.
did. Oh man. That's just kind of, it's such an indicator of like where we're at emotionally in this house.
We had a great episode, and if you haven't listened to it, listen to our episode with Greta Eskridge about her approach to schooling at home. She is a homeschooler, but she's noticed that they can't even do the things that they used to do because that was a lot of adventuring and a lot of connecting with other families. But we just wanted to point out there's another great article that we're going to link to in this podcast. It was just put in front of me. The blog is called Heather Ann Heart and Soul, but she came out with this great article that crisis schooling is not homeschooling. And I just wanted to highlight a few points about that stood out to me. So being home all day is not normal. So even for families who are used to homeschooling, they are not used to being home, and neither are our kids. So we have to
Right.
acknowledge that. Um, Children are grieving. You saw that firsthand, right?
Yes.
They don't have their friends. The routine. As much as my kids groan and moan about, oh yeah, school, school, they love the routine of it.
Right.
And we don't have that routine anymore. Um, there's also okay not to be amazing. Now, Greta talked about that. She's like, lower your expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And she said that sounds counterintuitive because we want to like do our best. But you know what? We're all like running so hard right now. It's okay to not be amazing.
You're not going for Homeschooler of the Year award,
Right,
right?
exactly.
So, one thing that stood out to me is that when our kids are at school, like in public school, they can often spend several minutes working on a very small task because their teacher is trying to guide, 25 to 30 students through that task. And so it's going to take longer to accomplish that one thing than it is at home, perhaps.
Mhm.
And that was a revelation to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, so I don't have to school at home for 6 hours a day to accomplish the exact same thing or a modified version of what my kids are doing at school. Like they're not going to get the
Oh.
benefit of that social experience while they're learning. But if we're working on a math problem, we're going to maybe spend less time on that math problem because we're not bringing 25 people along with us.
So we don't have to do a 6-hour school day. This is what you're saying to me.
Yeah, and like don't just create busy work because that's going to be the killjoy of everything.
Interesting thought. I was thinking too on the flip side that some parents may, I mean, it's frustrating to not he I keep thinking of the one room schoolhouse,
Yeah,
you
me
know,
too.
how they had to teach all of the kids. Didn't matter from ages, 5 to 17. They were all learning the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? Just as long as we're
Little
keeping their
House on the
brains
Prairie.
a Little House on the Prairie, that's
Yeah.
right.
So we kind of
So
talked about this in the first half, but I've seen this as an opportunity to do education a little outside the box,
mhm.
right? And you've come up with some ideas in your home. One really tickled my funny bone. You called it the board. Can you
The
tell?
I'm bored board. When your
I'm
kids are like,
board.
"I'm bored." I'm like, "Go look at the I'm bored board." And he made it. We made it together. The ideas that we can, how when you're, in a good place and you can come up with 5 million ideas, but when you're bored and angry, you're like, "I can't think of anything." So
Uh-huh.
that's when we go look at the I'm bored board. And we can post a picture of it, I guess,
That's
in our
awesome.
notes.
So my husband is a college professor,
Mhm.
and he's like on day 3, he already came out with a project for the two, my high schooler and my elementary schooler, and he's got them doing research and all. I'm like, this is college level, honey, but he doesn't expect college level
Results.
outcomes.
Yeah.
But he's still got a whole curriculum. Like, I couldn't even post it. It's so long what he's come up with. But they've actually embraced it. I took a step back on that and I was like, I don't know where this is going. But they've gone and it's an ecological research project. So they go down to the creek. We live near a creek and they
Cool.
observe and they listen and they take photographs. It's been pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that thinking outside the box. We were playing Monopoly yesterday and I was thinking, he's counting money. He
Yep.
was the banker
Yep.
and he's rolling the dice and he's counting on the dice and he's adding and so we got to think, you
My
know,
kids are it's part of what helps me get my work done, and I've had to give pointers is that they're responsible for dinner once a week.
mm,
And so one day my son said, I want to make pizza. And I said, well, do you want me to pick up pizza dough or do you want to make pizza dough? And I was like, that's a great chemistry observation. Like,
Mhm.
let's make pizza dough. So, well, and I didn't have to do it. I just had to find the recipe for him. And so that's, to me, that's education, right?
Sure. And
Those are
life
life skills
skills.
they're gonna take with them, and man, their future partner is gonna be so happy they know how to cook.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a post from a woman who is developing a life skills class for her kids while they're home. And every day they do something like paint a room, learn to sew, learn to cook.
Oh,
And she's like, I wouldn't have time to do this with my kids if we weren't all stuck at home.
that's the thing. We are getting to do things that we wouldn't normally get to do. Now, I haven't got to that level. Man, I would love to get them painting this office, but
Right? But we have this time, and before we know it, it's gonna be over. It doesn't feel like it now.
no, I've said this like just when we start to feel like that pool isn't so cold, that's when I think we're gonna
Get back to
our life
normal.
disrupted again.
I know. So let's get on to kind of our niche.
Mhm.
We um our zone is talking about screen safety and keeping our kids safe from pornography, right? That's what we do at Media Savvy Moms. And a big part of our Kids at Home Survival Guide is talking about as a family. Um, Kids are going to be more on screens. We're all more on screens right now.
For a lot of good reasons, we're on screens more. I mean, I'm connecting with people, with family, not just for work, right?
Right. Well, I mean, my son, my 13-year-old, is across the country and I can FaceTime him and I can text him all the time. That is awesome. And we were talking about yesterday with my little guy, all screens are not created equal. They're just not. It's all screen time is
Yeah.
not. He's like, what counts as screen time? And I was like, babe, screen time education, screen time work, screen time entertainment, like these are different things because and this is where we were talking with Greta about lowering your expectations because in our house during the normal, we have an expectation of 1 hour of screen time at home per day. But the thing is, just throwing in the mix the education requirements, we
Uh-huh.
can't do 1 hour of screen time a
No,
day.
so that would be separate. Yeah.
Right. So, we have to balance and talk about these things. That being said, we're being thrown into a more vulnerable place because the more screen time we have, the more at risk we are for cyberbullying, inappropriate content, pornography, all of these things. So we need to be having those open conversations with our kids more often and
Yeah.
checking in and following up more often than we usually do.
It's not as much that, oh my gosh, there are more dangers now than there ever were. Those dangers existed,
Mm-hmm.
but our kids are online more than they were. And this is the time. Like, review all those safety precautions that you have with your kids.
Right. And because we're all quarantined, we're stuck in the house, we need to not get into a false sense of security, right? Because we may be using our screens as a coping mechanism to get through stress or anger or um, frustration or those kind of emotions. You just need to remember basic rules like no screens in the bedrooms, no video games at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's easy to be, oh, well, it's not a school night,
Yeah.
right? So we just need to be careful that while we're lowering our expectations on ourselves, we're not lowering our boundaries when it comes to screen time and allowing our kids to be unsafe and vulnerable to pornography at the same time.
Part of the Kids at Home Survival Guide that we've created actually incorporates this discussion into it because this is not a one and done discussion ever. We talk about that all the time. And you're going to, if you're on the news or in social media, you're going to hear a lot of parent alerts of, heightened, You need to have a heightened sense of awareness of what's going on as far as screens and what's available to your kids, what dangers are available. We don't want you to panic. We want you to acknowledge it. We don't want you to ignore it. Please don't ignore it. But decide what you have control over. Remember
Mhm.
our rattlesnakes episode that we did in our first season?
The analogy was when you go hiking in the mountains, that there are rattlesnakes and that your husband always gives them the down low, your kids.
Yeah. When my kids were little, we used to go on these hikes in the mountains.
Hmm. And he didn't say, there are rattlesnakes, so you're not allowed to go hiking. You can't go. So just like we don't say, hey, there's dangerous stuff on the internet, so you're not allowed on the internet. Instead, we warn them, we tell them, we explain to them there's dangerous content. Here's what it is, and this is why you need to be safe. These snakes are venomous. They can hurt you. You need to come tell us. You need to run away. We educate them.
We educate them. Check your devices. Make sure you've got the proper filters and parental controls installed.
Absolutely. So, we're ready to wrap up. You ready to recap?
Well, today we just had a kind of a chit chat about how life is going for Melody and I, and we hope that what we're feeling is really relatable to what you're feeling. But as we go through this COVID-19 and the adjustments, these want to acknowledge that there are new routines, and to help you with those new routines that we want you to create, we don't want to give them to you. We have a PDF called Kids at Home Survival Guide and Screen Safety Plan. And it's a great guide to help you figure out your school at home and your how to manage more time on screens and screen safety.
And our challenge today is to go and download the PDF in our podcast notes. Good luck, everybody. Hang in there and try not to go crazy.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like what you heard, remember to subscribe. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, or email us directly at mediasavvymoms@gmail.com. We'd love to get your feedback.